reduction. Next is reuse. Next is, I put composting above recycling, other people might not. Then we have recycling, then we have incineration, and right at the bottom we have landfilling. Now, one of the things that Tata's consultants referred to is the fact that there's a current surcharge on landfilling. I don't know how much you know about this, but right now, the landfill surcharge, this is in addition to what municipalities have to pay to use the landfill, either to a private or a public company, so much a ton, they have to pay a surcharge. And that surcharge is going up at £8 a tonne a year. Right now, it's £48 a tonne surcharge on each tonne that's sent to the landfill. It will be £56 next year, and the year after, £64 a tonne. Now what is happening is that this surcharge is throwing councils, county councils, all over this country into an absolute panic. We've got to do something. We can't keep paying this surcharge. And then in comes the shiny incinerator company, and before you know what's happening, the most expensive way of handling waste, which is incineration, is portrayed as a way of saving money. Clever, isn't it? And then you throw into this mix some PFI money, rubber money, that you don't find out how much you spent till 10 years later. And, but this surcharge is pretty sad, because what it's doing is moving from the hierarchy, moving from the bottom up, instead of what we should be doing is to move from the top of the hierarchy down. And so that's what I would propose here. What we need are financial incentives to move from the top to the bottom if we're really serious about that waste hierarchy. If you're really serious about number one, you spend more money on number one than you do on 2, then 3, and 4, or 5. You don't spend most of your money on number 5. So I would suggest, oh, and the other thing which is disgusting in all this is this surcharge is going to the central exchequer, the central government. None of it's coming back. It's not coming back to the counties. So you're penalising them for doing bad things, but you're not rewarding them or helping them to do the right thing. So what I'm suggesting here, if we take as our baseline £48 surcharge on landfilling, we should pay communities £48 a tonne for each tonne that they reduce, if they can demonstrate that they've done that. Ditto for reuse, £36 a tonne. For composting, £24 a tonne. For recycling, £12 a tonne. For incineration, a surcharge of £24 a tonne. Also, no loopholes. Don't let them landfill the ash for virtually nothing. There should be a surcharge on the ash. Right now, I think they just pay £1 or £2 a tonne. And then finally, yes, the surcharge on landfilling. And make this fiscally neutral. So all the money that's going to the central government being paid as a penalty for doing the bad things is going to be used by the county councils to do the good things. And that one simple economic, it could be, as I said, fiscally neutral. And you don't need to have fantastically brilliant economists to work this out. It's going to change each year as the different quantities are shifted around, but you make it fiscally neutral. And that's one of the things that you should be asking your MP to do, because if we get that, then it would change this whole picture in the UK. Right now, the UK has a target on its back, and companies from Sweden and Germany and Norway and America are coming over here to build incinerators because they can't build them in their own countries. And right now, there's a story just a couple of days ago that Netherlands is importing, will be importing over 200,000 tonnes of waste a year from Naples because they can't get enough waste in Netherlands to feed their monsters. So landfill, as I said, landfill charge is making the most expensive way appear as if it's going to save money. Now, more arguments against incineration. It's very expensive, incredibly expensive, very complicated machinery. It creates very few jobs. This massive monster they're talking about here, 20, 30, 40 jobs, very few jobs. There are literally thousands of jobs in the alternatives that I'm talking about, but all of that goes up in smoke with incineration. Most of the money that you spend on an incinerator, or in the case of Tata, they don't care about that. But most of the monies that will leave the community, because you don't have any incinerator builders in this area. It's all going to be foreign technology. It's a waste of energy. I love this. They describe these as energy from waste facilities. These are waste of energy. Far more energy is saved with recycling, reuse, and composting. Now, let me be very clear about this. A lot of the material that they're going to be burning in the Tata incinerator will be paper and plastics. Okay? Let's have a look at it. This green column here is how much energy you save if you recycle a ton of these common materials which are burnt. Newsprint, fine paper, cardboard, other paper, plastics, high-density polyethylene, PET plastic, that's the plastic of water bottles. And then this yellow column is how much energy you produce if you make electricity, more if you capture the steam. And then this ratio at the end is how much more energy you get if you recycle compared to burning. And if you take PET plastic, which you believe 26 times more energy is saved by recycling PET plastic than burning it to produce electricity. So burning plastics is an environmental crime, in my view. What we should be doing is to do our utmost to recycle these things, reuse and recycle these plastic products. And if we can't recycle them, we shouldn't be making the damn things in the first place. Okay, incineration is inflexible and stifles innovation. Let me start by saying, over 26 years, I've seen enormous changes in the attitude, the response to recycling and what's possible throughout the world. I remember a phone call in 1985 where a local fellow involved in promoting the incinerator and working on waste in our county said to me, "Paul, if you talk about more than 15% recycling, you're going to lose all your credibility." And that was the attitude then. Recycling was good, but it was for the Boy Scouts, and you could only get a small amount. We liked it, but it couldn't possibly compete with this incinerators. Well, now we have San Francisco up to 78% diversion from landfill. 78% with a combination of recycling, composting, and reuse. Now, those are the changes then in 25 years. When you build an incinerator today, you say all those changes have stopped. Nothing else is going to change. It's permanent. And I think that is ridiculous, that nothing's going to change in the next 25 years in terms of how much recycling, how much innovation we're going to get. This is what the Director of European Waste said, Ludwig Kramer, on BBC Panorama a number of years ago. He says an incinerator needs to be fed for about 20 to 30 years. In order to be economic, needs an enormous input from quite a region. So for 20 to 30 years, you stifle innovation, you stifle alternatives, just in order to feed that monster which you built. Okay, now that's a statement from a European official. Now there's a statement from somebody that got suckered in to building one of these big incinerators in Kent. I'm sorry, you can't read the writing here, so I'll read you a couple of paragraphs. 10 years ago, the authority signed a 25-year deal with Kent EnviroPower to provide them with 320,000 tons of waste to burn each year. But what was initially seen as a cash-saving opportunity has quickly turned into a money pit, as the council is forced to send increasingly valuable recyclable material to the incinerator in order to meet its annual quota. In the last decade, many more economically and environmentally friendly methods of waste disposal have also been put into action, making the use of incinerators increasingly uneconomical. Councillor Keith Ferrin, the council's environment spokesman, said it had been a stupid decision in hindsight, but there had been no way to predict changes to the industry. He said, quote, "The people who thought they were being very clever and economical with people's money 10 years ago have produced a situation where the reverse is true, as Kent County Council is now committed to a contract we can't get out of." Now, admittedly, that's in the context, okay, of a local